And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. To spell that out, you will not be able to work in the United Kingdom.
My father did everything they told him to, lined up and took every single jab. And every time I'd beg him, Dad, please just think, he'd just laugh and call me crazy. We spread his ashes at his favorite park. I have to say I thought I was out of tears until his sister whispered into my ear, my love, welcome to our weeping years. Welcome to our weeping years. Tanya was a nurse working in the bush. She didn't want to take it herself, but because she loved the people out there, she decided to take a chance. Now she's going through a metamorphosis because Pfizer gave her multiple sclerosis. Now she lives with her mother in the city like a ghost, watching us all forget her. And while she is still too angry for tears, all I could hear in her burning eyes was her broken heart warning me, my love, welcome to our weeping years. Welcome to the weeping years. No one is allowed to talk about it. Take all your pain and keep it to yourself. If vaccines are safe and effective, then you must be the thing that's wrong. You're not worthy of state recognition. You're not worthy of any compensation. Not even worthy of a human singing your song. She was 92 and dying in a nursing home, and because her family said no to the jabs, none of them were allowed to see her, so it was clear she would die alone. But then one of her older granddaughters took matters into her own hands. After dark, she would break into the home and sneak down the corridors like a thief. And while the cares were all watching TV, she would climb in bed and spoon her grandmother. She would get into her grandmother's foot and spoon. And even now I can see them there, huddled together like babes lost in the woods, as we in our endless madness, hurricanes around them, as our madness hurricanes. Oh, can't you hear our gods whispering? If you guys don't find a way to conquer fear, then you're just gonna keep traveling down deeper into the weeping years. Deeper and deeper and deeper into the weeping years. And no one is allowed to talk about it. Take all your pain and keep it to yourself. Look around at all these tumultuous years, for lying has replaced the truth. And the one lie that they need to you to sell to your children is that their system cares for you.
Are
You know what
you?
gives me strength? The hundreds of thousands of you that say, Charlie, keep going.
Okay, that's Welcome to the Weeping Years, available on the album. You've got your cap on, Paul, and I want to say We got a whole load of new caps. We're going to put them online tomorrow. The blue ones, beige ones. If you're going to play golf, hot pink one, hot pink, black with Be Free on it. That's the new one.
My favorite.
But watch this, everybody. What the Fuck Boys have finally got their first merch hat up, and it's like a good old thing one. So we'll get that up tomorrow too for those boys. But this is my fave at the moment. Make Australia great again.
Remember when I went to
cap. MAGA. The song is definitely the last 5 years. Thanks, Miss Moon. Yeah, it is, baby. I agree.
Remember when I went on what the fuck and I made my own tinfoil hat? So we need to come out with a Cafe Locked Up tinfoil hat cap.
Well, I don't know if they do them in tinfoil, but we could.
I think we should. I think we should produce the first tinfoil hat.
Tinfoil hat cap.
Yeah.
Deep to make. Yeah, all right. No worries. There's thanks everybody for buying the book wherever it is. The book's been selling really well. And we're already doing this because Christmas is coming up. We're trying to survive. So there it is. If you want a signed copy, just go to cafelockedout.com, look up literature under shop, and you'll find the book there. I'll just get that there so we don't rip it. And the album's selling, which is done my head in. So, and there's other stuff going on the shop at the time too. There's a big announcement there. Do you have any other announcements you want to make before we bring in our esteemed guest?
Is the album called Me and AI?
Me and AI, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No,
sort of me 10%, AI 90%. You know, it's sort of a 10-90. I think AI, I literally feel AI going, you're so clever. You know, look how clever you are. Did you come up with that big word all by yourself? Did you?
I want to see the cover art. I think, that's
the cover art. The cover art's pretty cool. Where is it? Just before I bring in my man, I was really happy with the cover art. I just can't find it now. What I do?
Not to worry. We can get it later, the mind boggles. But people will remember we had Dr. David on the show a few times.
Yeah. There we go. Cover art. Me and AI. Pencils with automated robotic wings. Yeah. We've had David on a few times. We have.
Yeah, he's
a groundbreaking show. Remember, it was about 3 hours long where we were waiting for that drop to crystallize.
And just after we hung up, all shit broke loose. You know, that's just how it
was gripping.
It wasn't fair.
It was a great show. The whole show was about watching this bubble. We never got it. We still had good numbers. Enjoyed the show. So he's an interesting fish, and we're going to bring him on now. He's a great guy, and he certainly doesn't deserve what's happening to him. And one of the reasons he's up there, I'll get him to tell you the other reasons. But one of the reasons he's been in front of the tribunal is people don't realize how many exemptions he gave as well. So he was one of the great exemptioners, and they're crucifying him for it still. Here he comes. We're going to put you.
Hello. Good evening.
How you doing? We've got to get you some new caps, Dave.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd better leave it on. It just stops the reflection as well, you know.
Yeah. So, brother, you've been at the tribunal. They've been coming after you. How before we get into what they said, how does it feel to actually go up and have these people try to treat you like there's something wrong with you when there isn't?
Well, so far I've had my directions hearing, which is pretty much just sort of the organising what's going to happen, and the actual hearing is on the 22nd of October.
Okay.
But up until now, sorry?
Have they set apart several days for it? Are they giving you a time?
No. They think they're going to wrap it up pretty quickly. We're starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're only planning on going, I think, till 4 in the afternoon or something like that. So.
Wow.
So we shall see, but there was two. I had made the point of not participating in the process, on the grounds that I wanted the medical board to make their position on the Nuremberg codes clear, and also their position with respect to patient autonomy, informed consent, and the experimental nature of the vaccines. Well, they did make those things clear, and I went through it again today, and it's possibly a little bit more nuanced than what we put on Facebook tonight, but I don't think it's any less significant. So their position is that the vaccines are definitely not experimental. And I mean, I think we can spend a bit of time going through that tonight. I think there's a lot of evidence that the injections were indeed experimental. But the key thing was that the Nuremberg codes are replaced in Australia by the resolution from the World Medical Association in 2022, which was all about how everybody's entitled to have a vaccine and there shouldn't be any barriers to having a vaccine, and doctors must comply with the administration of the vaccine. So it's an inversion of the ethical principles that were laid out by the Nuremberg Code. So I think I've prepared a few slides so we can sort of step through that. I've tried to simplify the language and the concepts to make it a bit easier to understand.
Well,
we can go.
Nuremberg trials is only a piddly little thing, what was it, just
That's,
like a little
right.
wrap up of what was that thing, World War something? And it's only a little wrap up, you know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. So
I think you just got a wrap on the knuckles or something, wasn't it?
There was a bit of a wrap.
It's actually quite incredible. I when I put it up saying they're irrelevant, the people have been getting really angry. Some people saying, yeah, they believe that, but I just can't believe we're in the generation that is just following the generation that went through so much horror that they actually had the Nuremberg trials and the Nuremberg laws made, and now we're going, nah, we don't have genocides anymore. Gaza, what? Sorry, it's like what? Yeah, I couldn't believe it when you said it. Oh. How do you want to go about this? You want to just bring up the slide? Actually, before we go, big guy, how do you feel hearing this? I know you've heard it because of David Nixon's Substack, but how does it feel as a doctor to have the medical board basically saying the Nuremberg?
Well, this is the tribunal, QK. But to have our courts go, oh no, we don't have the Nuremberg, but that it doesn't apply here. It was a bit. It felt like a sock in the face, and I get that legally you can argue, oh look, TGA rubber stamped it, so it's all good. It's not experimental, but we know that there was a lot of fraud and deception and lies given to the TGA, and for them to be ignorant and unaware, it shows just how desperately out of step they are. And so I'm looking forward to discussing, because the ethics of informed consent, bodily autonomy, and the code of conduct that doctors have to follow, including in our social media posts, they very much, I quoted them back to them. There was a phrase on experimental now. They're playing fast and loose with the figures, because when it comes to the ethics, none of this it's never gone away, those requirements. And I'm so pleased that David's reminding them, like I did 4 years ago in my hearing, And I think we'll keep reminding them until they remember their obligations.
It's a shame you can't call Greg Hunt to the stand and say, Greg Hunt, when you said this is the greatest human experiment of all time, what did you mean experiment exactly? Just what, because in my ideas, it's like we're going to test something new and I'm going to see how it goes. I mean, it sounded like the mice had ordered it and they wanted to test it on humans before they were going to take it to see if it worked. Now they've gone, you can have it, guys. We're going to stick with natural immunity. But that's what he said, though. And we still replay it. So how can they say it's not experimental? I don't understand.
Well, I think they need to adopt that position. Otherwise, it opens up all sorts of problems for them. Clearly,
Yeah.
as soon as they, but certainly, I'm going to do my best to lay it out in a way that makes it clear what Anyway,
Even just getting it on the record. Is this on the record?
I've started that process to see whether this works. Now I've got to remember how it works.
You hit the TV look thing with the plus sign in the middle.
Yeah,
and
then follow the things.
and then find it from there. Yes, that one.
Hello.
And go from there, whatever you want to do.
Well, I'd like you to read my poem, Michael, because you've got a better voice than me.
You got it. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Remember Nuremberg. History never repeats until it does or comes close. It's always a bit different, but evil always feels the same. Maybe it's more like a cadence of control. Democide, genocide, eugenics, terror. What is that word? Terrorgenicity. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Complicity, this is Paul, it's yours. This is a document.
Complicity, homogeneity, lack of spontaneity, of curiosity of how the world really works. No questioning of the key motives behind the curtain. Those that are pulling the strings of those that are pulling the strings. Systemic things like lockdowns, masks, and those weapons up your nose. Not to mention the propaganda that knew no borders. Remember Nuremberg from December 1946 until August 1947. Remember Leo's Core 6. No experiment without consent. No benefit without choice, no science without humanity, no risk without proportion, no harm without stopping, no rules before morals. Remember Nuremberg.
Wow. That is so powerful, David. That's excellent.
So that was a sort of a summary of the essay that I wrote on it, which is on my Substack. But just to clarify where the key things are with me as regards to this. So I was in November 23, I was immediately suspended because of my serious risks to public health. Spreading misinformation, creating vaccine hesitancy. Although they didn't want to acknowledge the Nuremberg Code, they criticized me for looking at live blood without ethics committee approval. So that's basically the
Didn't
summary.
You give a load of exemptions too, Dave? Are they doing
Yes, so there was sort of another couple of points giving exemptions that didn't comply with their target guidelines and not sufficiently being able to have a reason for exemption was basically their argument. So they've gone through a subset of my exemptions, said that my notes aren't good enough. Which is a bit like complaining of the cloth on the deck chairs while the boat's going down, right?
That's right. That's right.
So this is the 10 points of the Nuremberg Code.
No wonder it's irrelevant. Look at number one. Look at number one. That's why it's irrelevant in Australia. Try put mandate into those 4 words and still have it say the same thing. Yeah. Wow.
Voluntary consent is essential. So participants must give informed free consent without coercion.
And nobody got informed consent because nobody knew what was in the shit. No one knew.
Yeah.
So they couldn't actually give you informed consent because, you know, they just didn't know. Yeah.
We still don't.
Yeah, we still don't. We still don't, you know.
Correct.
The experiment must yield fruitful results for the good of society, not obtainable by other means. Fruitful.
So it must be effective, right?
Yeah.
Rotten
fruit.
Not.
Rotten fruit is this. It must be based on prior animal studies and scientific knowledge to justify expectations of success. Wasn't it like 12 rats and they all died?
Yeah, if you were talking about the knowledge base before they gave it, we knew it was toxic. We knew the nanoparticles were toxic. We knew these gene therapy approaches to cancer patients was done in like 200 and something patients who were, you know, dying of cancer, and we knew it was toxic for them and not effective. And we know the previous history of coronavirus vaccines was a disaster. You know, it's a fast evolving thing. It was setting people up for antibody-dependent enhancement and actually worse disease, which is what we saw with this year's flu jab and what we've been seeing with the COVID jabs. It's made the vaccinated more vulnerable, which is probably why that so few of them are lining up for their 10th jabs. But, you know, so the public knows that it's not working. Even the ones who are yelling loudest, you know, vaccine hesitancy, how dare you speak against a church of vaccinology. But the reality is starting, it's even impinging on the courts, David. I'm sure it's impinging on them. But they seem hell-bent on pushing the line that the government can do no harm.
Oh, that's right.
It's like the divine right of kings has come back, only this
That's
time
right.
it's the government can do no harm. And if you say, well, you know, it was approved based on fraud, and in fact, the studies weren't even the thing that they gave, and you know, the injection we're giving to newborn children, which is another subject, you know, it was studied on like 140 kids followed for 5 days. So it's sort of a lacking in long-term harm search. Where was the long-term harm studies done with the COVID jabs? There weren't any. Clearly, there weren't any. And so there was no way, and I said this to them 4 year ago, David, at my medical council hearing, that there's no way either of us can put our hand on the Bible and say we know these things are safe or unsafe, because we don't have the long-term data. Sadly, now 4 years later, we have some long-term data, and it's bad. You know,
so bad. Yeah,
so bad. I think Wendy Daniels just came up with a great quote for a T-shirt. All the ferrets died. I think it'd be great. You're just walking down, all the ferrets died. People going, they'll be coming up asking you what. So that's a good one, Wendy. Yeah. Okay. I'll just get back to where unnecessary physical and mental health suffering must be avoided. Great.
So you shouldn't do a great big fear campaign, a great big toxic fear-generating psyop, you know, because that causes a lot of mental suffering. You shouldn't subject them to medical apartheid and medical martial law and
cultural terrorism.
Yeah, that's mental suffering. So you carry on.
No experiment should be conducted. There's a prior reason to believe death or disabling injury will occur. And we now know they knew that the first person to die of Pfizer died before they even rolled it out. It was, I think it was 45. Sharon Cousins found it out. 45-year-old woman who came over from America after taking it died here, but they didn't tell anyone because that would then they'd have to look at number 5. You know. Number 6, the degree of risk must never exceed the humanitarian importance of the problem addressed. Wow.
That's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Bit of a problem, yeah. Adequate preparations and facility must be in place to protect subjects against even remote possibility of injury, disability, or death. Only scientifically qualified persons may conduct the experiment with the highest standards of skill and care. Well, I think the injectors did have a 2-week course on.
It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long.
Like 2 days. Only scientifically qualified. Okay, done that. Subjects must be free to end participation at any stage if they feel unable to continue. There you go, Australia. This is the Nuremberg trials. They've overridden all of these, and now they go, oh, they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant. Yeah, they're irrelevant because we want to put shite into your veins, and the only thing standing in our way is the Nuremberg Code. So now it's irrelevant because we got all the guns. What you going to do about it? Huh? Aussie boy, what you going to do? You know? Let's go back. I didn't finish. Is there one more?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
The scientist in charge must be ready to terminate the experiment if continuation is likely to result in injury, death, or disability. And we have the forest of the fallen, evidence everywhere, and they're still selling it. They're still selling it. They're still posting it everywhere. Chemists, get your COVID vaccine here. Just step over the dead bodies, and you'll find us at the back. Well, that's depressing.
Yeah. So those 10 principles were actually based on 6 principles that Leo Alexander put together. And he was a really interesting chap. He trained in Germany, moved to the States, joined the army over there, trained in psychiatry, and then after the war, he was probably the person who put together the core of the Nuremberg codes, and he came up with these 6 principles. So these 6 are part of the 10, but of those 10 that we looked at before, there were a few extras that were sort of slotted in, whereas these are more the core ones, if you like.
Mm.
And this was the order that he put them in.
Voluntary consent and freedom of choice must always be present. No coercion. Fuck. Deception or hidden agendas. Holy.
That's my wording. Yeah. So what's in bold is, what he wrote.
And all of this, what I wrote the other day, all of this to tackle the greatest pandemic since your obese neighbor stubbed his toe when he was spreading too many snail pellets over his petunias. That's it.
So I tried to make it a bit easier to remember. So it's basically 2 to 3. Must work, must benefit, and it must be voluntary.
Wow.
And then the second 3, harm must be minimized, the risk must be shared, and people must be free to stop. So I think it would be a good aim for everybody to sort of try and remember as many of these 6 as they can, and by sort of simplifying the framework, hopefully it's made it easier to remember.
Well, we know from New Zealand that there was 11,000 elite people, judges and politicians, didn't have to take it. So number 5, the risk must be
Yeah.
shared unless you're us. And then, so that
Exactly.
didn't,
The same
that
thing
didn't work.
happened in Australia too. Not
Yeah.
only that, there was a 20-fold difference in toxicity. So, different toxic batches were sent to different places. Yeah. So the judge indicated that the tribunal is likely to give more weight to the 2022 World Medical Association resolution than to the Nuremberg Code. So the World Medical Association resolution is treated as a contemporary benchmark for medical practice. And the AMA is a member of the WMA, even though I'm not a member of the AMA. And that ties Australia basically into those standards. So the historical ethical frameworks, what was said to me and what was actually documented, I feel a bit different. But basically, what they're saying is that the code's not dismissed, but it carries less weight in terms of the tribunal's deliberation. So I've got the opportunity to argue the fact that this resolution is completely different. It's not like it's a modernization of the Nuremberg Code. It's a complete inversion of the
Oh my God! Look at number 3. So number 1, vaccination is universal. Number 2, access is ensured. 3, compliance is expected. Compliance is expected. Wow. Compliance is expected. That's evil, man. That's the banality of evil there. That's just evil. That's just evil. Australia, that's why I got that sign. See? Australia, land of the free. As long as you do as you're told.
So one of the elements is that because I didn't follow the ATAGI guidelines, and most of my peers did, or most doctors did, therefore I'm out of step, and yeah, that's been held against.
David, this is just like what the fruit of the March 2021 APRA document that said you can only say the good things, but you can't say anything negative about the shots because that might induce vaccine hesitancy. And vaccine hesitancy is now a principle that the WMA puts above safety. They put it above effectiveness. They put it above trust. They put it above lives. They put it above everything. This is where it's become a religious. We're in a religious war for our survival, frankly, between people who believe in this collectivist totalitarian bullshit versus those who believe in individual human rights. And I think you're sort of at the tip of the spear at the moment.
Can we go back? I just want to finish reading out that list. G'day, Chris. Finish up what you're saying, Paul, and then I'll keep reading. Because number 5 is us.
Carry on.
Standards are set globally. Deviation is delegitimized. That's us. Deviants. Collective goals override individual judgment. So did Marx, is this they just got this straight out of Marx, or did they just, it was like in the footnotes of Marx's thing, his notes or something? I mean, this is insane, compared to what we just read out in the Nuremberg trial, Nuremberg Code. Yeah.
So again, I tried to sort of divide this up into a way that makes it easy to look at. So of those 6, you can rather than divide them into 2 groups of 3, they fall into 3 groups of 2. And I'm sure we can remember the.
Did you write the top? The WA6 split nation into 3 pairs, each revealing a mode of control, not ethical principle. And that's what that code you read out, what that German Jew guy said was ethics or morality had to be a huge part of it, and they're just overriding ethics. Wow. Compliance is expected. So that's the doctors have to do it then. So you can't have doctors say, I'm not going to give it. The doctors are done and everyone has to take it.
That's what the expectation is, yeah.
And the threat in that compliance is expected. That's just like a 1984 comment, you know?
Yeah.
It really is. You could see that like above the these camps that they built for us. You could see that as you're going over the frame of the entrance. Compliance is expected. You're looking up at it as you're going in on the bus.
Well,
sorry, what is the article these things have been read from? Anna Costa wants to know.
Oh, so this is the World Medical Association Resolution 2022 with regards to vaccination. Yeah. But basically, if you Google World Medical Association Resolution 2022 pandemic, I think it's under, you'll find it. This is not how it's set out, so this is my interpretation, but I think you find it's pretty close.
Sure. Deviation is delegitimized. Opposing views are outside accepted practice. Wow. They really see us as a threat, don't they? Collective goals override individual judgments. Profession is expected to align. Nuremberg is ethical, individual, and evidentiary. WMA is policy-driven, institutional, and compulsory. Man, they don't even fit together at all, do they?
No, then it's not like one is a sort of a modern improvement in interpretation of the 70-year-old policy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just completely different.
It's sort of a return to the Nazi policies, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, in Nazi Germany, the concentration camps and the experimentation that led to the Nuremberg trials was completely legal. I'm sure the Zyklon B was authorized and stamped by the regime. We've frankly got a global regime or a totalitarian regime. I said early on that Big Brother came with a stethoscope hanging around his neck. And when I read this stuff, you can just see it's a global Big Brother using medicine as the control grid or the weapon platform. Because frankly, you know,
or the workforce. Yeah.
It's a weapon. It's a weapons platform that, you know, and it's disgusting. And carry on.
Nuremberg principles. It must work. Sound scientific foundation and clear purpose. It must benefit. Genuine humanitarian purpose. It must be voluntary. Individual consent is essential. Harm must be minimized. Risk must be shared. People must be free to stop ongoing consent and duty to stop harm, and the duty to stop harm. But on the other side, vaccination is universal. The goal is predetermined for everyone. Access is ensured. Structural mechanisms to deliver universal rollout. Compliance is expected. Oh my God, that's I hate reading that out. Doctors are required to support the rollout. Standards are set globally. Professional norms dictated internationally. Deviation is delegitimized. Dissent is framed as outside accepted practice. Collective goals override individual judgment. Alignment is required. So there you go, guys. We went through World War II, all the horrors of that. So we came up with the Nuremberg principles. So it could never, ever happen again. And now those who rule us have decided, well, maybe we went a bit too far with the Nuremberg trials, maybe we got a bit carried away. You know what I mean? Let's, what was so bad with what the Nazis were doing, just,
It was for the greater good.
Yeah, it's greater good, yeah.
So it wasn't until I sort of distilled that down and then lined them up that you can really see what's happened.
Yeah.
The ethics of it have been hollowed out, if you like. And I think, obviously that was deliberate and it's essential to the process because they wanted to set up a system that they didn't want to have an ethical boundary that the system would run up against and anything that would stop the rollout.
So they didn't want any medication that wasn't an alternative. So that's why ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, finally saved after 5 years, that had to go. And and now, of course, the Nuremberg Code had to go because all these stood in the way of their rollout.
Michael, they're saying that the Nuremberg doesn't apply because it was authorized, but they would have never been authorized if they'd followed the law regarding the EUA in America, which said that you can't authorize it if there is an effective, cheap, available treatment.
Yeah.
And there was. And that's part of the fraud, withholding the treatment, which would have made the whole need for it mute, was a big part of the fraud. And I think that's also why they come after my Lee for treating someone with ivermectin who actually got better, And the thing is, they're fighting. You still got doctors and people on social media who are trying to argue that these drugs don't work. But we now live in a world where millions and millions of people either have taken them themselves or know someone who has, and they got better. And so they don't believe the pharma-derived hit pieces. And, I was watching it in real time when the fraud was happening, like the Surgisphere paper was complete. It was published in Lancet. Straight away, the WHO pulled all the trials that were studying the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine. It was gone. And there is a crime here, and because if you recognize the fraud that went into the approval process, it should have never been approved in the first place. Once you undermine that approval, and there's many ways and many examples of fraud, you could spend weeks outlining the fraud that would show that it should have never been approved in the first place. Then they're facing the full brunt of Nuremberg, okay? Because they're hiding behind this approval, which should have never happened. But what they can't do, David and Michael, is they can't hide from their ethical lapses. So I love that you're pointing it out, that, because they still, like I say, you go to look for the code of practice, and it still talks about informed consent and autonomy, and that those are obligations. So they must be feeling some cognitive dissonance, don't you think, Mark?
That's a good point, actually. I almost need 3 columns in that table. I'll put a third column, which will be Australian Medical Codes of Conduct, and I'll put a fourth column, which will be the RAC GP accreditation standards.
They're responsibilities haven't gone away. Their moral responsibilities remain unchanged. And they behave immorally and unethically and homicidally, frankly. But because it's the government, it's okay. No. They're trying to argue because we had the right seal on it, it was okay. And I would argue it was never okay. And the courts are there to defend the government and try and send you down the river, David. But you know what? Their ship that they're sailing on, the Titanic, has got a massive credibility problem. And if they do that, they're only further highlighting their lack of credibility. They're highlighting that the courts are captured by the globalists, captured by Big Pharma, captured by corporate interests, captured by God knows who what. But it's time it really is time. You know, there are many times over the last few years where I saw all this fraud and harm, and I would be rocking in my chair going, Nuremberg, 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 because frankly, there has to be accountability. And your case sits right at the crux of it. Giving exemptions is valid behavior of a doctor. You're just upholding the code. They're telling you, no, the code doesn't matter because some people in APRA for a while said, shh, don't talk about the negatives.
Yeah. So in one of these columns, the ferret lives. In the other column, the ferret dies. Yeah.
Can I guess? Yeah. It's what was the reaction in the tribunal when the magistrate said that? Was everyone like, yeah, that's cool? Was the people like going, excuse me? You know?
Well, no, it was just the directions hearing that we had that discussion. So it was organising who's going to speak and what date are we going to do it. So it hasn't happened yet. The actual hearings on the 22nd of October. So I'm counting this as part of my preliminary work towards that. Now I do have a few more. What time? How much time have we got, Mike?
Yeah, just go, man. It's Sunday night. It's a public holiday tomorrow night here. Just go. I'm just amazed the Jewish community isn't more involved because, the Nuremberg Code is basically drenched in the blood of them. So you think they would be religious about defending it, Instead, there's not a peep.
Sorry.
The Jewish community. You think the Jewish community would be, they're all full of lawyers and barristers. You think they'd be ardently sort of defending it and saying and being outraged to hear that it's been overridden, but they're not. Like everything else, just this placidness, Yeah, that's true, Valerie. Yeah. Where do you want to go next, Dave?
Okay. I can't remember what to put next. It'll be as much as a surprise to me as it is to you. Okay. Here we go. I wrote a Substack called Operation Warp Fiction. I had a friend who did some in-depth analysis of the potential of actually how long it would take to make all those billions of doses.
Yep.
And the fact they said they did it doesn't mean that it's possible, obviously. And the industrial reality is that.
Can I just go back to that? Can I go back to that last slide? Because that just let's look at that. So January 2020, the genome is published. December 2020, EUA granted. So what's EUA for idiots like me?
That's the emergency use authorization.
Okay. By mid
So prior to
2021,
that, they
billions.
didn't like, you know, prior to that, they didn't know that they could. Didn't have the author. They didn't have the. They couldn't basically have distributed the vaccine before that was granted, or theoretically, they couldn't really get up to produce it before that was granted.
Because they'd be left with
Obviously.
billions and nothing to do with them. 'Cause so when they started making it, how you're saying they started making it in mid 2021. So how fast did they make billions of them? Because surely that would take time. Because even if they were making one a second, they're still they're still not going to be able to make billions in that time. They'd have to have factories upon factories upon factories, surely. Or are you sort of speculating that maybe they'd already produced them?
They must have. They had to have stockpiled them.
So
They had to have stockpiled them. Because even if you want to produce, say you want to produce 10,000 paper clips, that's relatively easy to do. But when you want to make 5 billion paper clips, you've got to start creating your own steel mills, and you know there becomes logistical bottlenecks. So scaling to billions of anything is actually impossible to do in a year. Nobody's done it in a year. So the best example of scaling, a company scaling, is actually the iPhone, and they reached billions of units, but it took them 15 years, I think it is. I'll get it on slide shortly. So there are a number of different bottlenecks. The cold chain is a major bottleneck. Well, I suppose we should start at the top. So the number of glass files that hugely significant.
It takes 2 to 3 years to build and cure. Supply is globally limited. So that's just the furnace to make the glass vials takes 2 or 3 years to build. Fill finish sterile plants require multi-year validation cycles. mRNA synthesis. Fucking English. In 2020, capacity. In 2020, capacity was measured in tens of grams per run. Orders of magnitude too small. Lipid nanoparticles, niche suppliers, long lead times, cold chain. Here we go. 70% freezers. Well, didn't Bunnings have them in Eskies? They were those minus 70 degree Eskies you can get, you know? They're the ones with the blue polystyrene top. And the dry ice was scarce. Scaling takes years. Even the fastest product in history, the smartphone, took 15 years to reach billions. The vaccine claim lies outside the corridor of industrial possibility in the impossible zone. So there's no way they just made them. They had them ready. So basically, they could have been making them for years, getting ready for this. Just in the happenstance that a virus turned up that actually matched the vaccine that they were making for years. So it's
yeah. So if you plot the complexity of the product on the y-axis, x-axis, and you completely put the time on it. Sorry, y-axis, x-axis. Yeah, put the time on the bottom.
Machine, ballpoint pen, paper. So paperclip and iPhones, they can produce them very quickly. But
no, it still took the paperclip 30 years to reach billions. The iPhone was the fastest. But even the things like TikTok and Facebook, if you look at how they scale, they haven't got to build factories and things. But it's all still, TikTok was the fastest. I think it took 6 years to reach billions. So the vaccine was, 6 times faster than TikTok.
So it's bullshit, really. I mean, we're just clearing out here. It's absolutely impossible that they just made it in that year. This is.
It's not like there was any transparency. I remember the factories were heavily guarded. military style guarding, and no one knew where all the stuff came from. They could have been working on this in underground bunkers for years, but
That's great. So go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
yeah, I was going to say that, Ben. I saw receipts that I think the World Bank had already ordered millions upon millions of COVID tests in 2017, I think, or 2015. So there are people out there who have found evidence of COVID being known, before we got to know about COVID. And it makes me wonder, along with this stuff, with just the reality of manufacturing and the lack of transparency. This is what I keep coming back to. If we're full of shit, if people are dying and being poisoned, show us the data. Why are they coming after people like Barry Young? Why are they, why aren't they making the data available? Because it can be made available. And we won't have trust in any of their shit and until we have full independent transparency. And I think that the call for that has to get louder and louder.
So just reading Ben Clifton here, they also had bulk PCR tests ready to go years in advance. They would have had to, yeah. Great point, Ben.
Same problem.
Even
PCR
like passports, all that software would have had to been tested. They look like they just came up with an app. They got on Fiverr and said, look, anybody in Pakistan want to make $20? We just need a worldwide, what do you call it? Vaccine passport and stuff like that, and so, yeah. So that would have to be made. Yeah.
All the marketing that was rolled out, that was all pre-organized. Yeah.
So lots of people knew. Lots of people knew it was coming. The ethical fracture. When reality can't support the claim, the system must adapt by hollowing out ethics and accountability. Your girl, Paul.
The last one?
I just did the list.
What are we up to?
Regulatory
Regulatory abdication.
I'm happy to talk to the first one because you may not be familiar with the acronym there, Paul. So that's the European Union Australian Mutual Recognition Act that comes from 1988. So if we just consider Pfizer Comirnaty, which is the one that I know best, Pfizer Comirnaty was 66% of all the vaccines given in Australia to date. And all of those doses came from Europe. They were all produced mostly in Belgium and Germany. And the EU-AUMRA legislation basically handed over all accountability, all quality oversight for the production to Europe. So the TGA weren't responsible for any regulation under that act. It was all done through Europe. So basically that act said that drugs that are made in Australia and certified in Australia don't need to be certified again in Europe and vice versa. But that clearly that shouldn't have been held to with these vaccines just because of the sheer way the whole thing worked. The pre-pact of the American Act, which basically gives a military control over production of foodstuffs and vaccines and things in the event of a pandemic. The EUA we've talked about, that's the emergency use authorization, and basically that allows for the use of things that haven't been properly tested. So it's not only the fact that they were able to use it, it means they could use it without actually doing the usual rigorous controls.
Wayne through down here. G'day, Wayne. Same with all the social distancing spots on the floor and the Perspex dividers and QR codes installed to every shop Australia-wide overnight. Told me he was ready to go. No way can you produce all of that overnight. Yeah, I agree, Wayne. This is reality now. I agree with this. Tell us how they can produce all these vaccines, all the things, the infrastructure, all the propaganda. They just threw it together overnight, you know? Bullshit. You know?
Yeah.
Ethical inversion. Oh, okay, well, that one's gone. Phase 3 is
Oh,
still ongoing when shots were deployed. The pivotal phase, stage 3 trials began in July 2020, but were still incomplete when mass vaccination started in December. Trials were unblinded early, undermining their scientific validity. Key endpoints: transmission prevention, long-term safety, were never established in the original trials. There were no completed studies on special groups: pregnant women, children,
Immunocompromised.
That's what I was going to say. Prior to rollout, manufacturing process has still been scaled and modified in real time, not locked and validated as there would be for a finished product. In scientific terms, the population became the continuation of the trial. I can't believe we're saying this, but we've actually been through it. But this is what they did to us. And people still won't believe it. Even if they're sitting here, we'll just answer these questions. How would they do it? They just shake their heads and not want to know. When actual fact, this is, wow, this is powerful stuff, David.
Michael, the trials being unblinded early was a big deal. You know, the so-called big study that they did with vax and unvaxxed, there was lots of skullduggery in there and fraud. I remember writing about people who, we all know people who were injured, and a well-known one is Maddie DeGarry. You know, she was part of the pediatric trial, and they just wrote her off as a tummy ache on their system. So, but they, after the trial, after a short period of time, they went and vaccinated or injected the control arm. Once you've done that, you've destroyed the ability to track long-term harm, and they continue to try and remove any trials, any evidence that can compare vaccinated and unvaccinated. It's not just COVID; it goes back to the whole genre, the whole class of vaccines. It's largely evidence-free, but what evidence we have is bad. So yeah, and they called it, and they said it was not ethical not to give them this. You know, the whole idea of a trial is with vaccinated and unvaxxed is to gather the data to prove statistically. And actually, in the case of Pfizer, there were more people dead in the jab group than the unjabbed group. So there was a higher. It didn't. People are saying it saved millions. How could it save millions of lives if it didn't stop transmission, if it didn't stop infection, and even in the one instance where they had these, although massaged results from the clinical trial, they more people died in the one documented vaxxed and unvaxxed trial for Pfizer. And somehow, and yet they're claiming millions of lives saved. It boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Amazing. Yeah, I've been watching JFK and the others on the in the congressional hearings, and it's fascinating watching them. And because we have a close friend here that was on the other side, who's saying how evil Kennedy is. I'm thinking, evil? How can you? So it's a real issue of what we can see and what they can see. They just cannot see it. Don't want to see it. Maybe they have to realize, like a football team, you're actually on the wrong side. And you got to admit it. You actually chose wrong. I don't know. All right, what's next on this fun fest?
But wait, there's more. I've got more.
Okay, wait, I'll put it up.
Yeah, it's
And there's
coming.
Booster House. Here we go. Mass experimental use without informed consent. Nuremberg Principle 1. Voluntary informed consent is essential. People were not informed that the products were still experimental under emergency authorization. Coercive methods, mandates, job loss, travel restrictions nullified genuine voluntariness. The absence of long-term data coupled with regulatory shields meant no meaningful ability to assess personal risk. This is the defining feature of unethical experimentation. Participation without full knowledge or freedom to refuse. Conclusion: by regulatory status, scientific stage, and ethical criteria, these were experimental products deployed on a mass scale. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
In Maiden, in the 6 to 10 years before they were rolled out, they had to be.
Yeah.
Only way to do it. Would have taken them at least 10 years.
So it did come from the lab. Then let's basically everyone says it came from the lab. So what that means, if it was taken 6 years, let's say 6 to be conservative, probably longer, but say it was 6, then they had the mRNA vaccine before they'd actually created COVID-19.
Correct.
Well, they've probably been working on the technology for a couple of decades.
Yeah. Before it was ready to go.
It was just a matter of, see, it's sort of like they knew how to brew it and make it, and they probably had a few tests, and they thought, they know the recipe now, we're ready, and voila, it came.
Even when they had the new variants, they said, oh, we made a whole new batch, Just took a bit of SW40, put a little bit of that in. That'll double the Omicron, A few nanobots that'll keep them funny,
Yeah.
They'll like it in the end. They'll be able to fart and change channel on the TV. Okay, there's which is this next one? Is this the same one?
Yeah, that was the same one. So then I'm probably going to start with pregnancy early on in my hearing, because the pregnancy issue is really the cliff face, isn't it, Paul?
Oh, it's horrendous.
We've been talking in recent months about birth defects and neonatal mortality. It's just awful, the data we're seeing, and like the lack of oncogenicity, the ability to produce cancer, and genotoxicity, the ability to cause genetic changes. It gobsmacked me that they were giving this stuff to kids, but giving it to kids in the womb and pregnant women, it was really unconscionable. It's such a crime, honestly.
I know. This is just it's like tears on the screen here, because you're so frustrated and it's so clear to be seen. You want to read this one out, Paul? Because didn't our mate Nicholas came out with a post today that's in the rats they tested, the female rats, 60% of their eggs were destroyed, corrupted in the study. 60%.
I mean, that's got a massive impact on humanity. And, one of the things I feared was genetic integration and transgenerational effects, because we've changed the species. We've changed the species going forward. So pregnancy should have the highest ethical standard. Pregnancy trials demand extraordinary caution. If you can't have too much of your fresh tuna or soft cheese, holy shit, you don't want to be giving them an unknown class of medication that's gene therapy with. So pregnant women
Can I
are
ask you,
routine.
as two doctors, though, as two doctors, can I ask you, would you know that as doctors that you don't recommend new drugs to pregnant women unless rigorous
I mean,
testing?
this is a first principles situation. You know, you don't actually need any evidence for anything. You just don't do it. You just don't go there.
And so all I've heard from women all over the country is that doctors were insistent that they took it. They had to take it, or they would be endangering their baby if they didn't
Well,
take
they
it.
couldn't go to hospital. Well, they would, yeah. They couldn't
Yeah.
go to outpatient clinics, or they couldn't have the
Okay.
ultrasound.
It's worse than thalidomide, and it's worse than asbestos, and it's worse than smoking. I once tweeted, it's like you're asking pregnant women, the government is telling pregnant women to smoke down tablets of thalidomide while standing on a pile of asbestos. You know, it's like it was freaking insane. And it doesn't give me any joy that we're finding the evidence for increased birth defects now, and seeing the increased neonatal mortality, and you know the potential now for this transgenerational harm being done by these shots. It's just mad. Shall I read this?
Yeah, you read this one, Paul. So this is, for what I mean, this is first principle, though. This is what, like every doctor, midwife, this is actually a first principle thing.
Yeah, and because it cuts to the ethics really clearly, because it's very hard to understand how they can justify this. It's like they're saying, oh, it's okay if we lose a few women and a few babies. It's for the greater good. Or individual rights. It's really stark here, you know, the misstep. So pregnant women are routinely excluded from early phase, as they were, early phase trials due to unpredictable maternal fetal risks. Drug development normally requires years of reproductive toxicology, longitudinal follow-up, and staged enrollment. And there was precious little of that. And in fact, what they were seeing in the animals was not reassuring. And that was despite using very small numbers. You know, if you do a trial and you approve something on the basis of, you know, like 100 kids, and then you give it to 67 million newborns.
Thanks, Christian.
You've got to question the process that actually rubber stamped that as an adequate toxicology. Regulatory and ethical norms insist on robust clinical data before exposing pregnant women or their fetuses to new interventions. Of course. And pregnancy requires it's a two-patient situation demanding heightened consent and caution, of course. And historically, disasters like thalidomide and DES shaped strict rules for pregnancy inclusion.
Now, most people don't know about DES. I interviewed one man who was a sufferer from it, or his mum had taken it. Can you tell us what DES is, David?
Well, it's a hormone, isn't it?
For still B-strol, I think it stands for. But it was able to produce cancers and transgenerational effects, you know. It was a disaster. So
what year was that in Australia, Paul? Obviously before I came over here, but
yeah, I can't remember the year, but yeah, we've got examples like thalidomide, and in some ways it's like the smoking thing. In the 50s, the docs were all on board with smoking, and you know, they said smoking is good for you, and the doctors were all smoking, and they were telling their patients to smoke.
Your doctor's favorite.
It took decades. It took decades and decades before it stopped. And similarly, now they're all on board with the vaccines. But this is what worries me, because the doctors have bought into it, and they're being aided and abetted by by the tribunals, saying that the government can do no harm, even though we can see that they're doing harm. It's very. They're not going to give up their position quickly, and that worries me because I don't know if we'll have a species left. If we follow the normal chain of events, I just don't know how many people's lives are going to be shortened or made infertile by the time the government begrudgingly admits to the last 10 people on the planet, yeah, we fucked up.
Well, look, let's be honest. It's hard to believe that if it took years to get these vaccines ready for service and all the other paraphernalia, that the government didn't know anything about it. It just seems really strange that no one in the government knew this was coming, or APRA didn't know this was coming. It's really strange to believe. Pregnancy is normally the final frontier of testing, not the first. And
Yeah. I was furious. I was just so furious. When I was watching the kids, I watched all the ASIP meetings where they were approving them in the younger and younger age groups. And giving these products to pregnant women is a particular crime. And there are a number of doctors on Twitter that were the cheer squad for how it's safe, and they pulled out their pharma-sponsored data saying, "Oh, it's fine, hop in." Yeah, I don't. It could. This makes me want to weep sometimes, actually.
that's why we started with the weeping years. What actually happened? No completed pregnancy studies existed before mass recommendation. Preclinical reproductive toxicology studies were limited, rushed, and often unpublished or incomplete at the time of rollout. Pregnant women were excluded from pivotal phase 3 trials. Despite this, authorities recommended vaccine in pregnancy within months of the initial rollout, before data existed. Later, pregnancy data were retrospective, uncontrolled, and often heavily censored or selectively reported. In some cases, animal data weren't finalized until after the policy decisions were made. This represents a reversal of standard scientific and ethical sequencing. It leaves you speechless, doesn't it? You know, you're trying to make light of it. How could they do this to us? How could they do this to our women, our mothers, our young mothers?
And argue that it's completely legal under the Australian government. It's such a. This is why I say that this is like the West's Chernobyl. You know how the communist Russia fell because, in part, because after Chernobyl, they realized maybe it's not a good idea having a former shoe salesman as head of the military, the nuclear industry, because he was a good party member. Well, we've got a whole lot of fucking good party members who are going to lead to really bad outcomes. It's very similar.
Do you know, when you think of this, just before we read this one, Dave, if you're on the floor, on the ground with this, these things of saying pregnancy, no data was released. But I remember talking to a funeral director in this tiny town, and she said she'd never been busier. And I asked her, what's the youngest you buried? And she says a 2-day-old baby. The mother worked, and the mother took it and was told to take it, and took it because she wanted to keep a job, which was part-time in the local IGA. This is her first child, and she has to live with that. I actually hope she doesn't hear this, but at some point she does, and realizing that this is where it comes down to, you know what I mean? It's Yeah. Think of all the young mothers out there who are silent now and grieving, and now somewhere inside of them, and they must be thinking, was it the jab? Did the state kill my child? Kill my baby? Wow.
Was cover up for vaccine injuries. I don't know about that.
Okay. What was that? What was that? There was another comment. So is this the new one? Pregnancy became part of the experiment without informed consent. Women were told the vaccines were safe, despite an absence of evidence. A direct breach of Nuremberg Principle 1. So they were lied to.
Well, and the other thing I remember being told, and I'm sure you heard it too, Paul, was that pregnant women got worse COVID than non-pregnant women. And
Dr. Dan's
I
in the
mean,
house. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, it wasn't the experience. It wasn't the experience. Look, young people as a whole didn't stuff, and they used this pretext that pregnant women were immunosuppressed, that it was like you're on chemo and you say you need your COVID shots, and it didn't match. It didn't match with reality, and it was in any event it was beyond reckless.
Mandates and social predator made refusal difficult, eroding voluntariness. I know when a lot of the mothers that took it that I knew said they're in hospital, saying they wouldn't be able to give birth in the hospital. There was all these horrendous pressures on them. Long-term development outcomes for exposed infants remains unknown. There is no comprehensive follow-up. Adverse events in pregnancy were often minimized or dismissed, not investigated with rigor. I know from someone in Sydney told me his wife works as a midwife in one of the major pediatric hospitals, and they were having emergency meetings all the time for the amount of stillbirths and stuff like that. But when they're sitting there trying to figure out what could be causing it, not one of them ever mentioned the jabs. The burden of proof was inverted. Instead of demonstrating safety before exposure, safety was presumed and dissent discouraged. Still trying to discourage us. Can you just go there for a sec? Vaccinating pregnant women with experimental products without robust data or true informed consent represents a historic ethical failure.
Yeah. I remember how you used to put in ethics committee forms for trying the most simplest intervention you wanted to study in the hospital. I mean, it was all for show. When it came down to it, they just threw it all away, and now they're throwing away. In other words, they're playing on the surface like they care about ethics and morality, but their actions show that they don't give one toss.
And I heard Dr. Pay said something really profound, because people were saying, the ethics had to be overridden because it was a difficult time. But he said the ethics are there for difficult times. It's so that we don't lose our shit in difficult times. We stick to the ethics. And that's what they're there for. They're not for the easy times. They're there for the hard times.
Yeah.
What was actually known? December 20 to mid-2021. Pregnancy recommendations were issued despite a striking lack of evidence. No completed pregnancy trials existed at the time emergency use was authorized. Animal reproductive toxicology was limited and not designed to detect rare harms or long-term developmental effects. Pregnant women were excluded from pivotal phase 3 trials, and there were no outcome data on pregnancy, miscarriages, or infant development. You'll go, Paul.
Pharmacovigilance systems were passive and incomplete. Many pregnancy outcomes were unknown or lost to follow-up. I wrote about that on my Substack too. It means that the true amount of incidents you have to multiply by some whole number. Often it can be up to 100 times more than what was reported in these passive systems. If you had an active system, you'd find a number that was maybe 50x, as in the case of anaphylaxis. As in some things, it could be 100x or more what was reported to the passive pharmacovigilance, the VAERS systems. That's what that's. And not following up is a big deal when you think about it. If you actually gave a shit about people's health and safety, it's a bit like planes. When most people don't, planes don't crash. Very, very safe. But when something happens, you're onto it and you're saying, why did this plane go down so it doesn't happen again? When we had people like Maddie Degare and so many that we know that were injured, none of them got contacted. There was
No.
They didn't follow up. They didn't.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't care. Official statements asserted safety rather than acknowledging uncertainty, reversing the precautionary principle. And professional bodies.
Just saying, just to play before you go on, Paul. I mean, literally all the vaccine injured people I've interviewed have said that no one followed up with them ever. No one ever called. In fact, they were trying to get recognition, and they were just treated with condescension by doctors. Yeah.
And they were disappeared on social media. You had Facebook groups pop up, and suddenly they were filled with huge threads of people, and people were watching as the thread was being deleted in real time. So it's not only that they didn't look, they deliberately suppressed, censored, and removed the real experience of people in the population, which is homicidal, for instance, psychotic, it's genocidal. Professional bodies issued blanket recommendations within months, despite absence of robust longitudinal data. And the scientific evidence base for vaccinating pregnant women was thin to non-existent at rollout, yes. But they communicated as if it was established. In other words, they lied. And the bodies that were recommending this were receiving millions of dollars from Big Pharma. TGA, millions and millions of dollars. The FDA, the CDC, Anthony Fauci and his mob had control of the patents and were receiving. So they call it conflicts of interest, but that's just a polite way of saying corruption,
Yeah.
Donna?
Yeah.
It was an amazing situation when talking
That's a t-shirt, Donna. Yeah.
Talking to somebody who was pregnant, and then looking around at all of the colleges and in all the educational institutions, everybody was saying it was safe and effective. All the obstetricians, all the midwives at the hospital, Royal GP College, College of Anaesthetists, obstetricians, pediatricians, everybody. It wasn't. I couldn't find one dissenting voice.
Do you know the other one is phlebotomists? I've talked to a lot of phlebotomists who quit, and for those who don't know, because I only learned in the last 5 years, that phlebotomists are the people that take your blood, and that's a great word. That's a great word. And they were saying that they were seeing the results, but they were basically, the pressure was you don't bring them up, but they were seeing it, and that they quit. They said they were getting tests for myocarditis through the roof, other things. They said it was extraordinary. They'd never seen anything like it. And if anyone questioned it or if he had doubts, out the door, just gone.
Yeah, that's my problem with Michael. That you, under this world that we've been living in for the last 5 years, you can't. You're asked to reject your lying eyes.
1984.
You're really being told like 1984, reject your lying eyes. And yet, in my own life, I I know of people that all around me that one had a massive, a young, woman, 22, massive brain bleed not long after, within 6 months of the shot. I watched my ex get shingles and then followed by lymphoma following the shot. A good friend of hers, really fit, suddenly dies of a massive pulmonary embolism. It's like I've been watching the karma the carnage. I've been watching the karma too for 5 years now, and it's hard to remain patient. And frankly, David, I'm outraged that they're coming after you for fulfilling your ethical obligations. That's exactly what they're coming after you for the temerity of fulfilling your ethical obligations under the code. And when you look at the ethical obligations, they have their roots in the Hippocratic Oath and the Declaration of Helsinki, and it just shows how far we've strayed. And that's why I'm thinking the system is full of, it's so rotten now that and the trust, whatever decision they come to, apart from that's negative with respect to you, they're attacking their own credibility, whether they understand it or not. They're taking out one more piece from the Jenga pile, and it's teetering. Look at Nepal. Look at just a few more Jenga pieces, and I don't know how much trust they're going to have left. But the good thing about that is, on the other side of it, we're going to want transparency, accountability, and independence. But none of it means anything if we don't have the right to human right to speak without censorship, to speak without being subjected to lawfare, without being subject to losing your license. And they have an obligation to provide the data, to be transparent. It's taken us all this time to show the harms because they haven't been transparent. It's been obvious to us, but it's
yeah. Next. Oh, this is from your work. Is this a new one?
Yeah. So this is one of the crystals in a sample of Pfizer Comirnaty that was 4 months old, and that was taken. So the slide was prepared in August, and all I did was put a strip of the medication on top of the slide, and then I layered it with 3 or 4 more layers on top, and then I put it in a drawer for 2 months. And when I took it out of the drawer, this is what I saw.
So is that self-glowing, that thing in the self-illuminating?
So it's probably not. It's probably higher off of the surface of the crystal, and it's probably got a curved surface, and it's giving off, it's interacting with the light, so it appears brighter. It's not self-illuminating.
Yeah. And what's the boomerang?
So this bit, that's the edge of a square within the center of the crystal. So it's raised probably above the surface of the crystal. But the crazy thing about this particular crystal is I discussed this with Gareth Ike. On the 7th of December 2022. And this is a frame grab from that video. We were looking at this particular crystal, which similar sort of structure with a very bright luminous center. And this one was a bit further up the slide. So during this interview, I decided I'd actually do a live sort of look over of a slide. And so we looked over this one. It was, as I say, it was 4 months old. And the key thing was this fiber was hanging above the crystal. So that's that crystal, right? You can yeah, it's the same crystal. It had this big fiber hanging over the top of it. And 2 days later, I did a Zoom meeting with Mateo in Ecuador, and that fiber that had been hanging up here had implanted itself right in the middle of that crystal. So that bright boomerang, as you call it, Michael, was actually that edge there, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Wow. So
Yeah. So this is a different type of image. This is what's called a bright field image. So this is pretty much standard microscopy, that you might use at school. And the fibers come along within the sample. It's gone up in the air. It's come down directly square on top of that crystal. So
you can see it's connected to it.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Yeah. So basically, my last point of the discussion is going to be about irreducible complexity. So basically, there's no way you can look at that and say that's an artifact.
No.
That as an image, as a unit. I had recently had a biophysicist in the US declare that there was a state-of-the-art example of nanotechnology, nanoelectronics was the phrase he used. So that in itself requires
Can I ask, what's the other end of that cord connected to? Is it actually connected to another one, like networking?
It's not networked in the same way. It goes close to another couple of crystals, and I'm happy to show that sometime.
Yeah.
And then it goes up in the air.
It goes straight to Bill Gates' colon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And over what time did that take to attach itself?
2 days.
2 days.
So that's the dates. So this was the date that I had the interview with Gareth, and it wasn't actually square. I didn't actually see it until the 10th. So this video was the day before this video actually screened. So I had to wait 24 hours to see what was captured in that video. Yeah. But yeah, I've got this on video on the 7th and this on video on the 9th. So Mateo and I did a over 2-hour Zoom meeting that day where we spent a lot of time looking at this, obviously. And
Did
then the
come up
next
with
day,
any conclusions? Did either of you come up with any conclusions?
well, I think the main conclusion is that it's clearly technological and warrants an explanation. Please explain.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no way you can say that's salt or cholesterol. I mean, and there's other things I've recorded that are obviously in the same boat, but this sequence of images is just undeniable, right?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely deserves being answered. What the hell is that?
Exactly. So as a way of raising some funds for so what I expect to happen is I expect to lose it this next one and then appeal to a higher jurisdiction and take the fight on a bigger stage, if you like. End of that time, I will need some serious legal support. So I'm starting to think about raising some funds. So I'm going to produce these images as prints. And I've got some pretty good quality images of this particular one, so I'm going to produce a sequence for this, and that I'll be advertising it on my Substack and through you as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so that'll be a way of raising some funds for the next part of the fight.
God damn.
Yeah, David, I always thought that the Constitution forbade medical conscription, being able to control the doctors that way. And when you put up the WMA slides and all of it, it seems to be at odds, clearly at odds with our Constitution. We have a profession that has been conscripted. That they've
been conscripted,
and that is very dangerous because this is what makes the globalists your doctor. It makes the technocrats your doctor, and I don't know if people have understood just how bad they are.
Wow.
So I think I will take the Helsinki Declaration, which was 1964, and the Alma Ata Declaration, which was 78. And then I'll take the Code of Conduct and the Hippocratic Oath, and I'll do the same sort of analysis. It'll just be interesting to see when things were watered down or changed.
Yeah. That is so freaking powerful, man. Yeah.
You're sort of like the Galileo of Nano. He used a telescope, you're using a microscope, and you're going, oh, there's this funny shit here. And everyone's going, shut up. That's not so it's quite interesting. I asked Grok about your post, about the I'm just trying to find out. It'll say things like the Nuremberg Code lacks direct legal enforceability, or
which is true.
Yeah, in domestic law, countries incorporate its principles indirectly through legislation, but you can see that hasn't really protected us at all. The code explicitly targets human experimentation, defined as novel procedures without established safety and efficacy, which is what you were arguing, and the judge is going, oh no, it had the PGA stamp, and so it's all good. It says in Australia the Nuremberg Code is non-binding status was underscored by your hearing, because you're facing deregistration by the medical board for questioning the safety.
For questioning, for asking questions as a doctor.
And even when it's not legally enforceable, Grok says, the code retains ethical weight embedded in professional codes, which is what we've been talking about. And like the Australian Medical Board's Good Medical Practice Guidelines, go read it. I mean, I did, and I asserted to them that they are not following their own code, and the tribunals are not following their own code. So critics of mandates argue it embodies universal human rights against forced medicalization, regardless of the authorization. I agree with Grok there. And we're arguing against the proponents of public health that counter that utilitarian ethics allows limited coercion during, So that's what we're dealing with. So even though it's not, the bottom line is, even though the Nuremberg Code is not legally applicable according to Grok to authorized products, which it seems to agree with the judge, it followed the statutes, it had the right stamp. It's confined to experimental contexts. but its ethical legacy continues to challenge any erosion of consent. And we've seen massive erosions of informed consent and bodily autonomy. And so, yeah, the judge may have been technically right, according to the statutes, it had the right stamp, but there's just this great big, it's sort of like the picture of Dorian Gray, So somewhere there is a festering image of our judges and our institutions that in one room it looks fine in the tribunal, it looks all shiny and good, but the reality of what's going on is corrupt.
Wouldn't there have to be either a big court case or a massive meeting at the United Nations or somewhere for them to sort of say it's time to override the Nuremberg Code? Wouldn't there have to be something somewhere, some documented? I mean, surely, some clerk in Pfizer can't suddenly go, oh, let's forget that. I mean, surely there'd have to be international meetings, because I mean, it's in Europe, and then they isn't there anything like that? I mean, who decided to override it? Who was it? The World Health Organization?
They're ignoring it, I would say. My point is the code's still there, the ethics are still there, the morality is still there. They're just breaching it because they think they can get away with it, and this is why we need to support David as the case goes along, because accountability is coming. It better come before we lose too many people and destroy too much of this country. But we're not heading for the cliff anymore, Michael. I think we're off the cliff now. We're free falling and flailing, and we won't stop until we get back to accountability and transparency and morality and ethics and informed consent and bodily autonomy. And I liked your slides that made that point, that's we're fighting the globalist control, and that was, it's got to get back to what's right for you as an individual. You're not livestock. You've got human rights.
But you have to let that be known. You can't, if you just stay silent and do what they say, if you act like livestock, they'll treat you like livestock. You've actually got to fight it. Any other humorous anecdotes in your kitty there, Dave?
Oh, do you want some more poems here, Michael? I've got a few more poems.
It's just got to process everything that's coming in. It's finished. I know Easterhouse likes to bring up stuff from his Twitter week. Do you want to get onto that, Paul, or is there anything else you want to bring up first, Dave? Oh, God damn. It's such a crime.
Well, I just wanted to bring up the fire ant. Just wanted to bring to people's awareness the fire ant eradication program that's happening in Queensland at the moment, that's insane as well. That is insane.
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. We were following that when we were up there, did a few shows, and it's absolutely madness, killing off everything for an ant that hardly anyone's seen. It's just
well, it's part of the same BS, isn't it? I think we need to see it in the same sort of frame, and hopefully that'll get people
we checked that because that had been done. We checked that garden. We couldn't find any insects. Nothing. There was no flies. There was no mozzies. There was nothing. Nothing. And no little birds either. Why should there be birds there? The insect eaters is not neat. Yeah. We're actually driving across to Perth. We're heading off soon. We're going to go through Broken Hill. And I'm thinking that we should do a thing at the start. How far can we drive right across Australia in the early in spring. So how far can we drive before we have to clean our windscreens? About 3,600, 700 kilometers. So let's say 4,000 Ks, because we'll probably do a few little twists and turns. So 4,000 Ks, how many times would you expect us to clean our windscreen? And we do a lot of night driving as well. So let be interesting to see. So can we get to Perth without cleaning the windscreen? And what a tragedy that is. That, yeah. Yeah.
I saw this interview of Gavin the Becker on Highwire today. I've got a 2-minute clip of that, which I thought he did a good job. Shall I play that?
Sure.
All right, let me see if I can get it going for you.
Which is on the childhood vaccine schedule. I think it's 5 vaccines, several of them before 18 months. Well, you can't get tetanus in the United States. You'd need a army to try to find it. First of all, it's not transmissible. People often don't know that. And the number of tetanus deaths in the United States was 13 over 10 years.
Wow.
And it was all elderly people. And so your kid getting tetanus.
Yeah, you get a sense this is the map you have in the book.
Oh, there's the world. So everything orange on that map is less than 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And the only place you can get tetanus is you go to Central Africa. 22 countries in Europe.
Oh, by the way, that little part in Central Africa, they live in dung huts. So
0. Russia, 1 case. Central America and Central America and South America, 0 out of 100,000.
Yeah.
So the point is, you can't find tetanus, right? And yet, the
5 shots. You're right. Like if you're giving these kids for something that the odds of their coming in contact with this thing,
you couldn't find
astronomical.
Right? And you certainly couldn't get all the diseases. Now I'll go real controversial for a minute.
Right.
In this book, I look at each one of the diseases because what's the question a parent should be asking? Are there any possible side effects from the intervention, the vaccine? Is my kid likely to get the disease?
Right.
Does the vaccine work? And is the disease really bad? Right.
Yeah.
So if the disease is what they call every disease, they say it's fatal. Right. Well, I want to tell you how many people on the planet Earth, all 8.5 billion people, died from polio last year. It is 0.
Wow.
540 people on the planet Earth contracted polio last year. 94% of that was vaccine-induced poliomyelitis, meaning it comes from the vaccine.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to say that is a true forbidden fact. Why? Because polio is the greatest killer of all time. No, it's not the greatest killer of all time. The biggest killer in the world today, in terms of an infectious disease, is the one we don't vaccinate for in America, tuberculosis. Yeah. That's the one vaccine we don't give in the United States. That actually has hundreds of thousands of deaths. But go figure why that's the one we don't give. But my broad...
So I thought he was... I watched that interview today that's on the Highwire, and I thought it was really good. Look,
so TB is the biggest killer in America. TB is a big killer in America still.
And I think he was giving a global figure there.
Okay.
But yeah, no, they don't vaccinate against TB. Doctors, if they're lucky, get it. It's actually probably a vaccine that is beneficial. But if you watch the interview, you'll see this was quite concerning. This clip of Ryan Cole,
etc. Why can they sit in dirty ponds, etc.? I mean, they're robust immune systems.
Yeah.
And here, I'm going to tangent real quick if you don't mind. T cell. Where does that term T come from? What gland trains our T cells? The thymus.
Thymus, yeah.
And by the time we hit 50 or so, our thymus is involuting and very small. The majority, and this is a huge concern I have with this platform, kind of going back to that platform.
Oh, I think I see where you're going.
Well, I've identified, multiple pathologists around the world have identified where these lipid nanoparticles go. We've identified the production of this atypical spike protein in these organs causing damage. It goes anywhere and everywhere. And then the immune system attacks where it lands and proliferates. If it goes to our thymus gland, and again, I haven't had a thymus gland in a young patient from an autopsy to study yet, but if I identify spike protein and damage in that thymus gland. Now you can no longer, for years forward, program your T cells. So this is the insanity of giving this type of injection without knowing the long-term consequence, because I think damaging the thymus gland at a young age damages immunity for a lifetime.
Damages immunity for a lifetime, and we would have to point out that that means vulnerability to novel pathogens, especially.
So, that was quite scary. One of the things I got in trouble, I was talking about, you're giving these shots to kids who can't benefit from it, but it could impair their innate immunity. And I found another mechanism by which the innate immunity of children who partly because of their wonderful thymus activity, were protected. Last clip, just a short one, but it's also on the theme of government trust. Let me pop this on.
I've spoken to many vaccine injured families. That's predominantly the community that I'm in, are of parents of children who have been clearly vaccine injured, and the government has denied them any compensation, denied their injury. We have whole institutions designed to quiet these cases from coming into the public, from proper data collection, all the rest. So you're talking to somebody who, looks the monster in the eye every single day and can't believe how gaslit our country is and how corrupt and evil it is. So I have no doubt that the government knew about this, has done nothing to remediate the pain caused to military members, veterans, and their families. I have no doubt that they caused your cancer, your pain and suffering, the deaths, it's just horrific lives, right? Because they've done it to millions of Americans through faulty vaccines. I don't know if there is justice in this country or we have a real justice system. I oftentimes, tell people, like, you got to just look out for yourself. You have to test your own water. Trust no one. Definitely don't trust the government, because the government does not care.
So there you go. I think, unfortunately, that fits with the theme, and that's...
yeah. But what I'm saying is interesting. It's just the government does not care. That's the same in that song I wrote. That's the one, is one of the one truths we can take away from this last 2 years, is that the government doesn't care. That's without a doubt. The government does not care. It's that's almost as high on the list as truth as 2 + 2 = 4, and the government doesn't care for ye. Yeah, it's extraordinary. Extraordinary times. Yeah. I actually feel profoundly moved by tonight's episode, David. You've done really well, man. It's talk about taking the wind out of your sails. And we've been all through it, but just seeing it and breaking it down to how it's just the thing you brought up, which showed it's impossible for them to have made that many vaccines. Like Dan always goes, all the tests were done. So you're telling me in 1 year, Dr. D, that they created it, tested it, and then manufactured it and got it out to everyone within a year.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Just not physically possible. I mean, even if you brought up a calculator and did, if they were doing 100 a second, would they be able to make 5 billion in a year?
Well, I think the key thing is to say you're dealing with a product that's way more complicated than an iPhone, and you're crashing billions with known bottlenecks, orders of magnitude faster than anybody else has ever been able to do it. So, yeah. You can say it works, but the reality is there's no way it worked.
Just wait. 100 vaccines. Not say a minute. 100 vaccines a minute how long would it? And more than 5 million because they gave us loads of doses, didn't they? Take to create. Well, let's say 10 billion. Okay. If this would be good. Okay, let's do this. Let's all get into. So I'll share screen. Dun, 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 dun. This is called Truth Gander. Truth Gander. Now, can you guys see that? There. Okay. If I was producing 100 vaccines a minute, how long would it take? To create 10 billion vaccines. Boom. Think on how long it takes to 10 billion vaccines at 100 a minute. 190 years. Can you read that?
Yes.
Calculate the total number of minutes, convert the minutes to hours, convert hours to days, convert days to years, assuming a non-leap year. Okay, let's say it was a there's no way they do a million. Let's just say somehow it's 100 a minute. Okay, let's say it's 1,000 a minute. Impossible for them to do that, but let's just say. So at the moment, we're at 190 years. 24 hours in a day.
19 years.
19 years. That's 1,000 a minute. Would take them 19 years to make 10 million. Remember, we all had shots, so everyone was supposed to have 10. So there's supposed to be far more than 10 million. So, so that's it. So not possible. Not possible.
And maybe the quality control wasn't as good as you would hope for.
Yeah. So the only thing is that they were producing these for a long time. Long time. Maybe 19 years, maybe 10 years. So they had this mRNA thing ready to take on COVID-19, which didn't exist because Wuhan hadn't released it yet, for 10 years. That's what we're dealing with. Ay. Do you know Richard? Do you know why Richard Wollstonecraft didn't take it? Because his grandfather, who was a Mason, this is a true story because he's not much of a conspiracy theorist, old Rich. His grandfather, who was a Mason, told him there's going to be a pandemic coming out. Whatever you do, don't take the vaccine. That's what they said. That's what he said to Richard years ago, years and years and years, like 15 or more years ago. So when it happened, he was like, whoa.
Good advice.
How do you know? So here it is. We threw out the Nuremberg Code, did everything we were not supposed to do, and here we are.
The accountability is coming. I have no doubt.
From who, though? Who's going to prosecute? Trump, who just took a $70.
Yeah, it's just a question of how many people.
Pfizer for a $70 billion investment from Pfizer.
It's very lucrative. They've opened up whole new markets in cancer. It's very exciting. And gene therapy and CRISPR. CRISPR are fantastic. They're seeing dollar signs up the wazoo, but they've made such a mistake. It's just a question of how many people they have to kill before accountability comes.
I just want to see this here, just with your point, Paul, because I'd love to be as positive as you. Gabrielle. Hey, Gabriella. Hey, Gabriella. A lawyer from Switzerland, Mr. Kurz, was served with legal documents. Tedros was served with legal documents. Tedros and another 3 members of the WHO in 2023, and nothing happened. No legal action taken. That's what I'm saying. To me, is who's going to take it? I mean, you know, Kennedy and Trump were like our only hopes, even though Trump was behind warp speed. So who's going to do it? Some Slovakian prime minister who'll probably be dead the next day.
But the accountability is coming because
yeah, but from who, Paul? Who's the sheriff?
The sheriff is reality.
Yeah, but the sheriff. I know, but who's the sheriff? It's
the same people who are supporting this regime are in the process of killing themselves and their families. Well, it's reality that's going to bring it. It's just cause and effect. You could say it's God's divine retribution if you like, because I think that's another way of framing what's coming. But yeah, I don't look to the courts for the retribution. I'm just saying, if we're right about the heart, lots of people.
Remember the film "The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance"? Have you seen that very famous Western? I feel like we're James Cagney, and the entire medical system of the government is the. I can't remember the name of the. Was it Lee Marvin? It was Lee Marvin is the bad guy. Anyway, I can't remember the bad guy. They remember they were going to have a shootout, and there's no way James was going to win, but he stood there nobly, like, yeah, I'm gonna fight him man to man, even though he didn't stand a chance. But in the end, it was John Wayne who shot the bad guy from the shadows, and we need someone in the shadows, the bad guy, backing us up, because I hear you. I want accountability, but how are we going to get accountability when, with this show, has profoundly moved me? I mean, I've tried to make light of it, but it's just profoundly moved me. And yet I know I could show it to all these people outside and they'd be walking around like, well, I haven't said this term in a while, but like lobotomized Hindu cows. You know, it's how do you cause a stampede when you've got a herd of lobotomized Hindu cows?
You've got the Gen Z in Nepal who were being blocked from social media and they burnt down.
Maybe we should get them to migrate here. Let's go to Albo. We want the Nepalese.
Look, I don't want to see everything burnt down. I just think they're in the process of burning it down. Maybe not metaphorically.
Metaphorically,
with the breach of trust and the lies. So I can't tell you the path, but I'm just saying that on the other end of this, we're going to have a different world, and that's good. You know, that's good. But getting there, but I'm just anxious to get there before too many lives are lost.
What are your thoughts, David? You think we're going to see retribution? You think we're going to see justice, or is this going to be a long, long fight?
Well, it seems I thought we had been in a different place by now.
Considering all the breakthroughs we've had, all the discoveries we've uncovered, including you, David, you've uncovered this nanobot stuff. I just have people even in the movement going, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. I think it's crystals. I'm thinking, but it's got wires attached, and they don't want to believe
I mean, I think that image is the key one, isn't it? You just can't ignore that.
Extraordinary, isn't
it? Well, I wrote this sort of tongue in cheek the other night. I thought that might be. I learned that there were 18 bunks. So before I came to Brisbane, I was in the Wairarapa, and apparently they are built. Since I left there in 2009, they built 18 bunkers in the hills there. So
Really?
I thought I better write. Yeah, there's 18 billionaires that built bunkers. You said that
Right.
rhymes quite well. Maybe I should put that in.
Have I frozen, Michael?
Either that, or you're doing a good, bold, and a beautiful impression. You know, that sort of. That's that. Yeah. I love the funeral thing. All right. Did you have a poem you wanted to read out, David? You've got to read it out. It's a bit too tired for me, but.
Can't you see it?
No, I haven't put it up yet. I haven't put it up. Sorry.
That's right. I thought.
Where
No,
is it?
I like the idea of your dulcet tones reading it out. This one hasn't got any long words, though. I promise.
It's not that. Oh, it's the medical words that screw me up. There's I can't see it.
That's because I can't find it. Here we are. This song. Okay. So I was talking about the bunkers back home, right? So I wrote this about the bunkers. Hopefully.
Still can't see it.
What about now? How's that?
Oh, yep. Okay, let's go.
I'll make it a
Hunker
bit
in
bigger.
my bunker. When the shit happens, I want to hunker in my bunker, commune with the rabbits if I can get there. So just to be sure that I am there in time to be underground before it happens. I'm going there this week to live sort of underground. I'll be okay. I have thought of everything: water, food, thermonuclear protection, 8-foot thick reinforced concrete. It's effective and safe, very safe. I have the proper legal guarantees and assurances. I'm an Uber prepper. Should last me out and my children, but none of them want to come and hunker in my bunker.
Oh.
That's great, Paul. That's great, David. I should throw that in Suno, man. Make it songs. You know. Get on to Suno, David. Get on to Suno. SUNO. Start making music. I'm selling an album, man. I'm selling an album of AI songs. I can't believe it. You know. What a night. What a night. So usually I put up a title and we end up having a story show where we don't even go near what was in the title. But tonight we have basically they're saying that the Nuremberg trials Nuremberg code is a code that happened to somebody else, not us. And we're going with the upgraded version in which you are a sheep waiting to get your tail docked. And yeah. It's powerful, powerful, powerful stuff, David. Powerful stuff. And hope everybody will spare it. I'll get some shorts up of this tonight, and but hopefully you'll share it or get it around, or better still, download it.
I will. I'll download it.
Talking to the people watching. It's 800. There's about 1,000 people watching at the moment, close to it. Please, if 10% of you downloaded it and reloaded it, we would reach loads. And you just go to Google and go download Facebook video, download Rumble video. They got all these free download things. Download it, reload it, download it, reload it. And let's see what it can reach. Because if you share it, it'll go nowhere. Okay. Well, we might go out with a song. We've lost the East. You still there?
I'm still here in spirit. I would have to log out and log back in, and we're just about out of time. So, yeah, good night, everyone, and well done.
You going to be okay, Dave?
That'll be good.
All right. We'll stay in touch, brother, and we'll go through and definitely do Suno. Well, I should. You'll love it, man. You'll love it. And a poem reaches some, but a song and Suno doesn't worry about rhyming. It puts music into free verse. This one I'm playing now, The Lucky Country. This is with Suno, and so yeah. Have faith, Michael. Thanks. Yeah, okay. There's yeah, so this is it. And a lot of this is free verse, doesn't all rhyme, and that's the beauty of AI. I'll send you through the album, David, so you can listen. It might inspire you to come up with stuff, because I think you'd be great, man. It's all different genres. It's only 10 cents a song, works out to. I mean, it's interesting to do. All right, my brother. Thank you. And thanks for your support when I was in hospital, man. That was really sweet of you coming in. You know? Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
No worries. Take care, brother.
Glad
Lucky
to
country,
see you
guys.
on that side of the mic.
Yeah.
Bye now.
There. Isn't on
When I
the
met Jesus Christ, he was almost 10 years old.
Me and AI album.
And he was helping his mother push a trolley full of all they owned. And because they couldn't find an inn they could get in, they were heading to the city and leaving Bethlehem. Couldn't you perform a miracle? I'm out of them, he said. I tried turning nothing into warmth, but it just made my mother cry. It just made my mother cry. Mary Magdalene has become a man, and tonight he's old, and she has been riding my tram. Now it's late and she's trying to sleep beneath a poster for a bank. Your dreams are important to us as it bathes her face in gold. Come give us your natural gifts. We make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page that we're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair. Back down the road I found the church we built on the black man's bones was empty, and out the front a sign read all but sold. A sign read all but sold. And we all owe so much money, but to whom we're not quite sure. So head down, we just keep running along our fading golden shores. So head